Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Edupedia world. And I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again we are continuing with the winding up of the companies, right? And let me remind you again that for this chapter specifically, we will be dealing with the provisions of Companies Act 1956 instead of Companies Act 2013, right? So we have already had a couple of lectures on this topic of winding up, right? And the specific topic under consideration for today's lecture would be the consequences of the winding up order, that is the effect of the winding up order, right? And in the previous lecture we have discussed in detail about the powers of the court, both before making the winding up order and after making the winding up order. So if any one of you have doubt in that topic and have not been through that topic, please refer back to the previous lectures, right? That is somewhere around the lecture number 9 and lecture number 10 of winding up. Okay, and if you're done with that, we can commence forward with the effect of the winding up order, right? So basically we are going to deal with 7 different points in the effect of the winding up order, and that will be our main concern for the topic today. And let me also inform you that you have had a couple of questions on this topic in your previous examination, although it was a long term back. But if you had a question, that means it shows that there is a possibility of making or drafting a question on this topic, right? So you had your questions back in 1993, 1995, which were a straightforward question, right? What are the consequences of the winding up order, or how does the winding up order affect the pending suit or other legal proceedings against the company, right? So basically the effects of winding up after the court has given out a winding up order for any particular company, what are the procedures that would take place, right? How does the entire proceedings commence? So the first thing, right? So once the court makes a winding up order, basically if you remember what happens, the entire procedure is that the creditor or the contributory or the company or any person who is aggrieved, right, they can file a petition to the court that, listen, I want this company to be wound up and this is the reason. They'll have to justify why they want the winding up and why should the court actually proceed with the winding up, because winding up, as you know, is the last resort for rectification, right? If there are any other means to rectify what has gone wrong, then the court would prefer to do that. But if there is nothing remaining, then winding up is the last resort, right? So for example, if the creditors, they have filed a petition to the court for compulsory winding up of the company, right, then the court needs to be satisfied that yes, winding up is the last resort and winding up has to be commenced in this case, right? So if the court decides in favor of the creditors, right, and then the court orders the winding up of the company, then the first thing that is supposed to be done is that the liquidator and the registrar, they need to be informed that yes, this company is going to be wound up. Why the liquidator? Specifically the official liquidator. Why I'm talking about specifically the official liquidator is that you don't have just one category of liquidator, right? In the next class, most probably we'll be discussing about the difference between the liquidator, official liquidator, and the provisional liquidator, right? So far you need to know that official liquidator is just a category of liquidator, right? So that official liquidator needs to be informed that yes, so and so company XYZ Limited is going to be wound up and you have been appointed as a liquidator for this proceeding, right? Why? Because the liquidator also needs time to prepare itself with receiving all the books and papers of the company, all the records, all the data, so that it can plan as to how to commence and how to go about with the liquidation proceedings, right? And second, an intimation is also sent to the registrar, right? Because the registrar is one person where the registration of the company was made, right? The company was registered with a particular registrar of any state, and then the registrar will also have to be prepared mentally that okay, if this company is going to be wound up, I'll have to check the members over here, the promoters, the other people who are interested, to give out a notification in the official gadget, right? So that everybody is informed that this company is going to be wound up and that sometime in future, like sometime hence, maybe 2-3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever is the time that the liquidator will take, post that the company will have to be dissolved again. So even the liquidator will have to be prepared with the data, right, with the database of the company. So henceforth, once the court has issued the winding up order, you will have to intimate the winding up order to the liquidator, that is the official liquidator, and also to the registrar of the company. right? That is the first step that is being taken after the winding up order has been passed, right? Then the next proceeding, the next step that we take is the filing copies of the order with the registrar. Now, how do you file the copy of the order with the registrar? So basically, first you need to know who would file the copy of the order. If the court has given the order for winding up, will the court go and inform the registrar? No, the court is not responsible to do this. So who? Who would file the order of winding up with the registrar? So if we refer to the case that we have been talking about, right, where the creditors, they have come up and they have filed a petition that no, I want this company to be wound up. I am aggrieved, they are not paying my debt, or whatever is the reason, right? And then the court investigated the matter and the court decided, okay, you will have to wind up yourself. This is the order the court gives to the company. So who were the two parties to the proceeding? The creditors and the company, right? So they are the only people who will be informed about the winding up. They are the first people who will come to know about the winding up, right? Those creditors who have actually filed the petition and the company who was defending it, right? So these two people, these two persons, they have the responsibility of intimating the registrar. So any of them can do that, right? But they are duty bound to do that. They have to file the order with the registrar. Actually, both of them will go, because you cannot decide, right? The creditors might be thinking, okay, let the company do it, and company thinking, okay, the creditors will do it, and finally nobody reaches the registrar, right? So that is why both of them are required to file the order with the registrar. The creditors will go, listen, this was the issue I had filed a petition and the court has ordered winding up, please take a note of that. And the company will again go to the registrar and say, listen, dude, I am a little screwed up, right? I was not able to pay the debt to the creditors, and so they had filed a petition for winding up, and the case went for a toss. It went against me. So I think I'll need to wind up, so you better prepare yourself with the acts or the job that you have, right? So both of them will intimate to the registrar, right? And there is a time limit. It's not that, okay, the winding up order has been passed on 1st of January and the company goes to the registrar on the 2nd of April. Listen, there was something I had to inform, I forgot. No, because the registrar needs to be prepared on time, there are certain documentation that needs to be done, there are certain intimations that has to be made by the registrar also. So there is a time limit specified for this, right? What is the time limit? The court says, or the act says actually, that once the court has given the order for winding up, you will have to intimate to the registrar within a period of 30 days. The 30 days period has been given to you. That is a reasonable period that one would take, right? You would not require more time than 30 days if you ask me genuinely. What do you have to do? Nothing. You'll have to, once you get the order, go back, discuss, form that letter of intimation and post it to the registrar. It'll take a week maximum, but still the court has given you a time of 30 days. Maybe anything goes up and down, you have a time limit for 30 days to do the same, right? But the court in the proceeding at the last date of the hearing may say, okay, as per this is a section and as per the evidences that I have gathered, I think that yes, the company should be wound up. And that is one order that the court gives in oral, right? But unless and until the company receives a written order from the court, right, then they receive the certified copy of the order from the court, they cannot submit it with the registrar, right? It's not a formal letter that they type and they sign, okay, we have been ordered to wind. No, with that intimation letter, they also have to attach the order of the court, right? What has the court decided? On what basis are they asking us to wind up? Everything is written in that order. So they will have to attach that order to the letter of intimation. And hence, the 30 days grace period which has been given is being given starting from that date when the company or the creditor receives the order of intimation. So once they have received it, then they have 30 days time to intimate to the registrar. Because unless and until they receive the order in formal, right, even the liquidator is not going to the company. That is the practical scenario. It's not that, okay, at 2 p.m. the court ordered winding up, oral winding up, and the case was dismissed in the court, and at 4 p.m. the liquidator reaches the office. No, that is not the situation. There's a formal proceeding that goes on, procedures that are to be followed, right? The court will issue a written order for the same. That will be given to the liquidator. The liquidator will call for all the documents, all the books and everything, and then the liquidator will plan as to when will he go to the office, and when will it take the charge of the directors and take the assets and the books and everything. So it will be a planned procedure by the liquidator, right? And you know, when you send your letter of intimation to the registrar, right, and you have attached the order, even the registrar will prepare a minute of the entire proceeding. Okay, as per the order, this has happened. Let me jot it down in bullet points. So he has each and every detail. Okay, this was the point, this was the point, this was the issue, this was the observation of the court, this happened. They will prepare a minute document, right? And then along with that minute document, they will send out an intimation to the official gazette. They'll notify the official gazette that yes, such order has been made and so company needs to be wound up. Right? So even that is a procedure that is being followed on the registrar's end, but that can only be commenced once the intimation is been given to the registrar. So filing of the copy of order with the registrar, that is the procedure for it. Right? Next, the third effect is that deemed notice of discharge of officers and employees. Yes, once the order of the court has been passed that the company needs to be wound up, it means that the company is coming to an end. So the officers and the employees of the company need not be given an additional intimation. Once they come to know that the company is being wound up, it is deemed that yes, even you will have to leave the company. If there is no company, what will you do sitting over here? Nothing. Right? And it is a genuine thing that you should understand. It is prudence. So for that, the code says, or the act says, that you don't need to give a special intimation. Right? It's like the doctor says that you have a cancer and you cannot be treated, and then you will again go back to the client, the patient, and say, you'll have to write down, listen, since you had cancer, so this is the requirement that you cannot be treated and you'll have to be mentally prepared. No, once the patient knows that he has cancer, he is already mentally prepared. And once he knows that the cancer cannot be treated, right, there is no requirement, or he'll be sitting, okay, I have cancer, I cannot be treated, let me see what the doctor says about this. Doctor has already said what he had to say, right? Understand that. So there is no special intimation required for that purpose, right? But again, the act goes on to say that this notice, the order of winding up, would in general situation will always be an intimation for them to discharge their officers. But in certain situations, if the business of the company is continued, that means you will continue to be in office, right? But in genuine, if you ask me, then the continuation of the business by the liquidator for the beneficial winding up is not actually considered to be continuing the business, continuing with the company, continuing with the operations, right? It is just continued for a short duration for the specific purpose of the beneficial winding up, right? So ultimately the company is going to be wound up, it is not continuing. So you would not consider that to be continuing business, but still, yes, if they know that the liquidator is to take over the company and the liquidator is planning to run the company for a good amount of time, like 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, whatever it needs, right, for the beneficiary winding up. But that is once the liquidator plans and the liquidator thinks that yes, voluntary the beneficiary winding up is possible and they need to do it, then they will again ask the officers and the employee, listen, I need your help, you need to continue for the next 2 years, I'm saving a job for the next 2 years, in the meantime you can look for job other way at some other places, but for that time you are still sticking to your roles and your responsibilities and you will help me to beneficially wind up the company. But in a normal scenario, if you think, if you are the employee of that company and you know the company is going to be wound up, will you stay back in the company? No, you will always start looking for job opportunities. The day you get it, you will want to just drop in the resignation and move out. At some situation, you can also form a cartel and you can say, no, let's do one thing, let's fix a deadline. This is the time till when we'll continue. Why? Because even we want the company to go for beneficially winding up so that we get our payment in full. Right? That is again one way of saying. So that is always case specific what the employees will do. But basically what you need to understand is when the court gives out an order of winding up, right? And if the company is not continuing for certain number of period just because of the beneficial winding up, then the officers and the employee, they will have to vacate the offices, right? And if it is continuing, it is their discretion if they want to continue because the liquidator wants them. So they are not mandatorily required to discontinue from the office, right? And also remember at this point of time, that if the employee or the officer had a contract with the company, had a contract of employment, that yeah, this is the fixed period, the minimum period of employment, and before that the contract is being terminated, right, that will be considered to be a breach of the contract. So if there is a breach of contract, then the damage will be allowed to that employee or the officer who had entered into that contract of employment with the company. So the compensation is there, right? It's not like the case of removal or vacation of office that we had seen, that if the director is guilty and we ask him to vacate the office, we do not give him compensation. Those cases are not over here. It is the winding up, the entire company is going for a toss, but still the employees, because they are not at fault, right, and the contract is being terminated from the company's point of view, will not say that the company is doing it voluntarily, but ultimately on the whole the company is at fault. If the company was performing well, if they were paying off the creditors on time, the creditors would not have filed a petition for winding up, and if they did not do it, the court would not have ordered winding up, and hence everything would have continued well, right? So if so, considering this to be a termination of the contract from the company's point of view, from the company's end, hence the officers and the employee will receive the compensation for the same, right? And once the order has been received, when we talk about the deemed notice of discharge of office by the officers and employee, we also include the discharge of the office by the directors. The directors also cease to hold office, they cease their powers, right? So basically, all the directors of the company, whatever job they had to do, whatever management they had to do, everything shifts to the liquidator now. Now liquidator is the sole director for the entire company. Whatever he decides will be done. The power of the directors are lost. But you also know that at any point of time, we have discussed it in the previous class, that you can challenge the winding up. If the order has been passed and you want the winding up to be put on stay, because you know that yeah, there is a way out and we can prove it, then even the court will want to help the company, right? That yeah, if you have a way out, please come out, right? Nobody wants you to wind up because everybody is at loss if you wind up. So that residuary power is still vested with the directors. All the other powers are taken away, but that residuary power, the power to appeal against the winding up, right, that will always be vesting with the directors of the company, right? That is one point you need to understand. At the end of the day, if you get a question, a case study question, that okay, the order of winding up had been passed, the directors have to vacate the office, good, it has been given in the question and you're very happy. Oh, the question itself says the directors have to vacate the office. And now, if the director feels that no, they can put the winding up on hold or get the company rejuvenated, then you think, no, the directors have lost their power, they cannot appeal, right? So please keep in mind that for this specific purpose, their powers will be retained with them. They will have this residuary power with them at all the time, that if you can, then please appeal against the winding up order, right? This power has been given to them just because nobody wants the winding up to be commenced, right? The next effect that we have is the stay on the suits or the proceedings. So whatever suits are running against or for the company, or whatever proceedings are already continuing in any court, right, they will be put on stay. So basically, what you need to understand is, once the order of winding up has been made, right, the company loses the control. The directors, they lose the control. The company cannot do anything now. Whatever is to be done by the liquidator. So any suit that was running for or against the company, or any legal proceedings in which the company was involved, they will have to be put on hold. Why? Because now the company is not the charge. So whom do you fight? Whom do you ask for anything? Or what do the company charge somebody for? They cannot do it, because now they don't have any power with themselves. All their proceedings, all their dealings, everything now vests with the liquidator. So it is just and equitable to put a stay on all the suits in the legal proceeding, right? And another thing that we need to remember is, now since the control of the company is not in the hands of directors, it has been shifted to the liquidator, you cannot file any new proceeding against the company. Whom will you charge? The company has no control. What will the company do? Nothing. So there is no point that you file a suit against the company, or you file a legal proceeding against the company, because you're not going to gain anything. The company has nothing in its hand. Everything has been shifted to the official liquidator, right? So to conclude, you have two things. One, all the continuing suits and the legal proceedings will be put on stay, and all the new suits and proceedings will not be allowed to commence. right? But yeah, again, you will have exceptions for these cases, that if there are something which is really serious and you file an application to the court, and the court also considers that no, this is one thing that we cannot put on hold, then the court will say, okay, you have my permission to continue with this suit or this proceeding, right? They are specific in nature, they are special cases, right? And they will require the permission of the court to continue. Okay, now you also know that who is the court of jurisdiction in this case? Either the High Court, we have discussed it in our lecture earlier, it's either the High Court of that state where you have the registered office for the maximum period in the past 6 months, right? Or the district court also in special cases, or when the case has been transferred or whatever has happened. We have discussed all of this in detail in the previous lectures, right? We are not repeating the entire thing, but you know that these courts are either High Court or below that, right? So they will not have any authority over the courts which are above them or at parallel level. You understand the point? So if there are any subordinate court, the High Court has the power to supersede everything. They'll say, no, if I'm taking over, I'm taking over. All your suits are on stay, no new proceedings will be commenced. But if the suit or the proceeding has already climbed up the ladder and reached the High Court or the Supreme Court, then that High Court will not have any right on the other High Court or the Supreme Court, right? So any legal suit or proceeding which is continuing with the High Court or the Supreme Court will continue as it is, right? They shall not be stayed, right? So that is one thing, that you put a stay on the suits and proceedings. The other aspect is that you will also, the court that has the jurisdiction for winding up, that court will also have the jurisdiction to dispose of the suits and proceedings, right? So when you put a stay, either you put a stay, or if you want that, okay, it's on the last end, let me dispose it off. You take a decision, you make a judgment and you dispose it off. You will have the authority to do that. But again, remember, that will be an authority given to you only in case of the subordinate courts. If that case has already reached a parallel level court or the higher level court, that is the other High Court or the Supreme Court, then the authority moves out from your hand. But if the court was pending with any of the subordinate courts, you can take the proceeding in your hand and you can pass a judgment on that. So the winding up court can decide all the claims which are made for or against the company, which are made by the company or which are made against the company, right? So basically, what are the cases that you will have the jurisdiction on? You can either entertain or dispose of any suit or any proceeding which is by or against the company. After suits and proceedings, if there are any claims by and against the company, even that can be disposed of by the winding up court, right? And if there is any application that has been made for, in the case of the compromise and arrangement, right, even that can be taken up by the winding up court. So these are the specific things that has been mentioned in the act. Any suit, any proceeding, any claim, right, any application for compromise or arrangement. And otherwise, if there is any question of priority, like for dispensing with the list of the contributories or the list of the receivers or whatever it is, like something that is related to the winding up or that is connected to the winding up. So in that matters also, to set the priority, the jurisdiction will be in the hand of the winding up court, right? Then also you know that all the proceedings will be transferred to the winding up court. That means if there is any suit, any proceeding which is commencing or which is under the control of any subordinate court, that will be passed on to this winding up court. And now the court will decide as to whatever it needs to do with that case, right? So now if anybody wants to make any further appeal, or if anybody wants to continue with the proceeding, or whatever be the case, whatever be anything, if you want to approach the court, right, if there is any situation or any circumstance that arise and for that you need to approach the court, then you will no more approach the court where you had filed the petition or the court that was undertaking the proceeding. Now for anything you will directly approach to the winding up court, right? But always remember that any suit or proceeding which is at the parallel level or above, that is at the other High Court or the Supreme Court, that on those courts, those suits and those proceedings, you will not have any jurisdiction, right? And one very specific characteristics of winding up that you need to understand is the effect of the winding up order. The last thing, what happens is whenever the court orders winding up, irrespective of who had filed the petition, either it is the contributory or it is the creditor or the company, whosoever had filed the petition, the order will be neutral for them. Which means to say that, if take an example, right, whereby I'll explain that the court is not biased with either the contributories or the creditors, right? So for example, if the company, right, they had entered into any fraudulent activity, and for that case they have like deceived the creditors, right, and they have taken charge of their money. Any amount, any fraudulent practice had been conducted whereby the money or the goods or anything that belonged to the creditors had been taken over by the company by fraudulent means, right? That means it was not just. So when the winding up order is being made, what do you think as a matter of prudence? Those things should be returned to those creditors because it has been proved that it was a fraudulent practice, right? The directors or the management of the company, they entered into a fraud practice and hence they captured the goods or the money from the creditors. They put it on hold or whatever they did. That was a fraudulent, unethical practice that they had entered into. And now the fact is clear with you. So what should you do is return it back to them, right? That is what you should do. But when we say that the winding up order is a neutral order, it means you are not favoring anybody. If something had happened, it had happened. No problem, because those are the reason why we have ordered the winding up. Right? Because the company was not working well, because of the unethical practice, because of that fraudulent practice, that those things have already been considered when the court has ordered the winding up. So there is no point on taking another action on the same. So if there is any certain thing that the company has taken from the creditor and they had withheld it with themselves, now that will form part of the general asset. And the creditors who had been affected with this fraud will again have to stand in the same line of the receivers, and they will get the money in the order of preference, right? There is no partiality, there is no preference, there is no benefit given to anybody, no matter who has filed the petition or who has been defending it, right? The order will always be neutral for the contributors and also for the creditors, right? So that is all about this topic, the effect of winding up. I hope this is very clear with you, right? What you have is, first, when the winding up order is passed by the court, you intimate to the official liquidator and the registrar. That is the first thing you have to do. Who intimates to the registrar? Either the creditors or the company, means whoever has filed the petition or the company, and they will do it within 30 days, right? So that the registrar is able to intimate to the official gazette, right? And then all the officers and the employee will be discharged from their duties unless and until the liquidator is planning to continue for the beneficial winding up, and they will be allowed the compensation if there is a breach in contract, right? All the suits, all the proceeding will be put on stay unless and until it is of the parallel or the higher level, and they will also pass to the hands of the winding up company, and they will decide as to what to do with them, right? They will have the jurisdiction to dispose of all the other suits and proceedings, may it be any suit or any proceeding, any claim, any application for compromise arrangement, any question of priority, anything. And at last, that this order is a neutral order, right? There will be no specific preference given to any party. So that is all about this section, and I hope the entire concept of the consequence of the winding up order, the effect of the winding up order, is clear with you. So I think that will be all for the lecture today, and we'll be continuing with the next topic, whereby we'll differentiate between the official liquidator and the provisional liquidator, and also commence with the powers and duty of the liquidator in the next class. So please stay tuned for that lecture. Until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.